Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We're going to be covering some actions of the police officer that has seen me criminally charged for shining a flashlight at him for 2.16 seconds. For this story, we go back to the year 2022. Ryan Van Horn was still the chief of police of Jasonville, and Jared Holtzclaw, the prosecutor who charged me with a Class A misdemeanor for shining a light at a police officer, was still the Greene County prosecutor. We have a story here from Wayne.com. This is one of their top stories from May 2022. I'm going to read it out to you. So, Greene County, Indiana. A Southwest Indiana prosecutor has cleared the Jasonville police chief in the shooting death of a man who wielded a knife last month. Jasonville Police Chief Ryan Van Horn shot and killed Stephen Scott Wheeler on April 29th, which is not disputed. Greene County prosecutor Jared D. Holtzclaw ruled, though, that Van Horn was right to shoot Wheeler, who threatened the police chief with the knife after he was called to Wheeler's house on April 29th. Van Horn was called to a home after people reported that Wheeler was threatening people with a knife. According to a media release from Holtzclaw's office, upon arrival, Van Horn parked his vehicle on the street and got out. Wheeler was on the porch of the home and immediately began threatening Van Horn, according to Holtzclaw's release. He then began to approach Van Horn aggressively with the knife in hand. Now, I want everybody to keep in mind, this is according to the prosecutor's release. Okay, so no news agency that I've talked to, and I've reached out to at least two of them that covered this story, neither of them actually attained the body-worn camera footage in this case. All right. So Van Horn told Wheeler to drop the knife 15 times, the prosecutor said. He also backed away from Wheeler. At one point, Wheeler told Van Horn, "I don't care. Shoot me." He also added that if he had a gun, he'd shoot himself. The Holtzclaw's media release said. Wheeler is accused of raising the knife and then charging at Van Horn. Van Horn took steps backwards and then fired one shot that struck Wheeler from about 6 feet away, according to Holtzclaw. Van Horn called emergency workers to the scene and began providing assistance to Wheeler. The incident was recorded on Van Horn's body camera, and the Indiana State Police investigated the incident. Though it is impossible to be certain, the language and actions Wheeler chose that day were consistent with someone who sought suicide by cop, Holtzclaw's release said. Eventually, Wheeler charged at Van Horn while armed with the knife and left Chief Van Horn no choice but to shoot him in order to avoid being stabbed. Under Indiana law, Chief Van Horn was justified in using deadly force in order to protect himself from serious bodily injury or death, Holtzclaw wrote. And then that's the end of the story, everybody. So the reason that we're even covering this story is because I made a request for that body-worn camera footage. I wanted to see what actions Wheeler did take that justified Chief Van Horn's use of deadly force against him. Obviously, if this story is true, if Holtzclaw's press release is true, there's certainly a significant reason that Holtzclaw would have to use deadly force. Now, a lot of people will argue maybe he could have used his taser. And a lot of people argue that, in the heat of the moment, it's hard to make a determination as to what you should do, especially if a man is charging at you with a knife, right? But seeing as no news media had ever seen the body-worn camera footage, and it has only been government officials that have reviewed the body-worn camera footage of a public official killing a member of the public, I wanted to see it for myself. Maybe the public would have a different perspective on the events that transpired the day of Mr. Wheeler's death. So I went to the Jasonville City Hall and filed a public records request with the clerk. I then received an acknowledgement of the request from the city attorney saying that we are reviewing your request and will honor your request to the extent permitted by all applicable Indiana and federal laws and regulations within a reasonable time period, consistent with Indiana law. Please note that the video you have requested to review may require redactions of certain information and data. You will be responsible for the city's cost in redacting the video if necessary. Yours truly, Samuel C. Drummy. So then after, I received a denial letter from the city. This denial letter, a letter denying me access to only view the footage of Ryan Van Horn, the cop that charged me with shining a flashlight at him. Well, they're denying me to view the footage of him killing an individual, of him killing a member of the public. This is what they say. To whom it may concern, the law firm continues to represent the city of Jasonville, Indiana, with regards to your public records request, made in person at the clerk treasurer's office on July 8th, 2024. This response is provided within a reasonable time of the request. Having reviewed the request, having considered relevant provisions of the Indiana Access to Public Records Act, including but not limited to, and then they say the Indiana codes they're referring to, having reviewed publicly available guidance from the Indiana Public Access Counselor, and having considered the potential implications of the release of the requested video, the city hereby denies your request to review and copy the video in question. You may contact me at the number below or by email at samueldrummy@therowlawfirm.com if you have questions or concerns. Please note that, as the city's attorney, I am unable to provide you with legal advice in regards to this matter. Yours very truly, Samuel C. Drummy. Now, I'm going to show you all the code that they're saying it exempts this footage of a police officer killing a member of the public from the public's view. All right. So we're looking at the code that the city attorney is referring to. We got 5.2 here, and we've got Section A, Section 2A. They're saying that releasing the video creates a significant risk of substantial harm to any person or to the general public. They're also saying, D, that releasing the video of Ryan Van Horn killing Mr. Wheeler would not serve the public interest. Now, I look at this from two ways, all right? I'm going to give you two different perspectives just for the two different provisions of the law. So, Provision A, that releasing the video creates a significant risk of a substantial harm to any person or to the general public. The way I read into that is, if nothing wrong happened that day on the part of the police officer, the one who's still alive, how could it create a significant risk of substantial harm to him? As anybody who views the footage and views it, as anybody who views this footage would understand if he had to defend himself. So for that, I really don't understand how that would create a substantial harm to any person, because if the guy was acting in self-defense, fair play to him, fair game. I mean, if the guy's running at you with a knife and he's, threatening to kill you, you obviously have a right to use deadly force to defend yourself, right? So then we've got Provision D, would not serve the public interest. Well, how rich of that public agency to determine that a video of them killing one of us, the public, would not serve the public's interest? I think what that provision should say is it would not serve the public agency's interest, because it would serve our interest to know if we have a good police officer or a police officer who's rogue and is committing murder, right? And by the way, don't misinterpret it. I'm not claiming that he did. I'm only claiming that if it was the case that this video footage did contain information that would show that, or that would suggest that, the public certainly has an interest in that, right? And in getting this guy off the streets. But if he is a great police officer who was just defending himself in the public, well, then good on him, right? Good on the guy. Who are we to decide that a man can't defend himself against a potential use of deadly force? If you're like me and have an interest in finding out more about why this public agency does not want to release the footage of them offing a man, you can direct your questions to that agency's Facebook page, if you're a member of the public that has been following them for more than 24 hours, showing that not only is this agency discriminatory against who can see them killing people, but they also want to discriminate against who can leave comments on the public forum that is their Facebook page, right? Indicating that they don't like free speech or transparency. Luckily, they still have a phone number, and the mayor's office will receive messages via their voicemail. Perhaps you could direct your questions there. I will leave the relevant phone numbers in the description and pinned comment. With that being said, everybody, this is going to be a team effort. We need the footage of that man, Ryan Van Horn, killing Scott Wheeler. We need to see it if it's justified, and we need to see it if it is not justified. With that being said, everybody, my name is Craig Hendrick with the Hendrick Media Group. I hope you all take care. Stay vigilant. Stay free.